Okay. So, Matt Corby. My name's Eloise King, by the way. I thought we'd start with a two-part question as the first cut off the rank. When did you figure out that you wanted to be a rock star? And at what point did you realise that you'd actually done it, that this was going to be your full-time gig for real?
I guess at no point I wanted to be a rock star. I guess the stigma attached to that is something that I've always kind of found kind of pretty negative. But
in what sense?
I think, well, that has really strong attachments to fame. I think fame's fucking stupid, to be honest. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. And I think the way that people glorify artists is quite strange, because it has nothing to do with their art at all. It just has something to do with this status that they acquire, which is sort of this celebrity status that they acquire, which sort of doesn't really mean anything other than, like, it's a... I wouldn't know how to put it. But, like, I think it's most strongly related to fame, like the word rock star. And I just think it's all silly, and people look up to these artists that are just human beings, essentially, that have worked hard at a certain craft, and their art should be appreciated. But in a lot of ways they should almost remain slightly nameless, but just appreciated for their art. And I've always kind of felt that. I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself, because I went on Idol when I was a kid, but I didn't really know what I was doing then. I just thought it was a singing show, and I like singing.
Yeah. And at that point, had you... Because, I mean, I guess there's millions, hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world, musicians, that think, wouldn't it be amazing if this was what I could do, and I could make money, and this could be my full-time gig.
Yeah.
Was that what you were always gunning for?
Yeah, I wanted to play music for people. I always will want to do that, because it's a beautiful thing to actually give to someone else. And a lot of people are taking at the moment, the way society is, and the way, the current social climate, most people are constantly taking, and it's quite destructive, if anyone hasn't noticed. But art is amazing, because art is something that is conjured up mostly from the imagination, and it is thrown into something that is tangible or audible, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to do. But yeah, I guess when I was 13, I started touring in a band. I left school and started doing that whole thing, and I guess at that point I was like, well, there you go, I'm doing it. Like, that's great. And from that point on, I never really considered another path.
You never went back to school?
I went back for a year. So I left school in year 9, and I was touring in this crazy, like, religious evangelical band. It was kind of funny. And I was brought up in a church, and that's kind of how I built my view, built my morality from that perspective. And then shortly after I left that band, I kind of realised that a lot of it was a bit nonsensical, and it doesn't really apply to the way human beings should be living in this current day and age. And I guess, I went back to school when I was 16 for like maybe a term of year 11, and then that was it again. I left.
To play music?
Yeah, to play music.
So, interesting that you had that really religious upbringing. What does religion mean to you these days?
That's a massive question. It's something that will create a lot of social tension if I answer that in all honesty, so I don't think I will. But
you got the right to remain silent.
Oh yeah. I guess people are, every answer is cliche, right? Like, people are entitled to believe what they want, and people form opinions based on their conditioning as people, whatever. I know that sounds stupid, but it's understandable. I understand why people turn to religion. I do, and I get why they put their faith in something beyond themselves, because in a lot of ways, people are quite oppressed these days, and people don't really have an outlet to be who they want to be. Even school, you get thrown into school, and all you get taught is how to get a job. You don't get taught anything really valuable. You don't get taught like what you are fundamentally as a human being, psychologically, physically, and emotionally and spiritually. That's all left to things like religious institutions, and a lot of those are very small-minded perspectives of something that is so much greater and so much further beyond our understanding at this point in time. And science is getting close to being able to explain like the natural order, and they're being able to study what is visual, or what is what's in front of the eye, and potentially metaphysical as well. But most of those are theories. But yeah, religion. What can you say, really? I haven't really come to any conclusions about that yet. I'm still pretty young.
Okay, cool. So I want to go back to something that you just said before about, the state of the world and society, and how there's a lot of people taking more than they are giving, I guess. I'm interested in your personal experience as your profile has grown as an artist and as a musician.
Yeah.
Have you found that has, there are more people wanting to take from you as a result? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and a lot of it is essentially time. People just want your time, because I guess when you become a public figure, or someone that is deemed as famous, put that in inverted commas, people want to associate themselves with something that is great, and if you sort of put faith in petty things like famous people, which a lot of people do. Think about those fucking magazines that sell off the shelves, like News Weekly and all that bullshit. It's just like, it has nothing to do with who you are. It's just people that are essentially bored with their lives and need to escape, and it is a form of escapism. And people do walk up to you on the street, and some of them, they don't even know what you do. They just know that you are famous, and by association would like to make themselves great, because they want to attach themselves to something great in their own point of view or in their own perspective, and that's different from every individual. So most of the time, if someone comes up to me and it's like, man, like, I really like your music, this song in particular did this, I'm like, you're a fucking legend, what's your name, let's have a chat. I'm down for a conversation with anyone, because that is how you learn in life. You talk to people and you get an understanding about their perspective. But with other people who just want to use you as a cardboard cutout so they can put it on their social networking page, going like, I met this person, to me it's just like, well, that's pretty cheap. Like, that doesn't accomplish anything for you or me. Apart from your own ego and your own sense of self being slightly, what would be the word for that? Like your ego being slightly exacerbated in some way.
Yeah, elevated.
Elevated, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
by association.
Yeah, for that I'm just kind of like, oh, come on, like, look at what this exchange really is right now. Like, this is, we're not communicating like human beings. You have an idea about me, and therefore you are wanting to attach yourself to that by doing whatever you're doing in this current exchange, but it's not real. Like, and that's what I always try and explain to people, like, your idea of me is not real. You do not know who I am or what I am as a person, so, like, and you don't know anything about my art, so what are you actually getting at? But not many people understand that, because people just kind of see stars in their eyes in a way. It's like
they're a product. You're a product of their projection. About what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Soul Sessions encourages people to live from the heart and go after their dream life, to make it real, rather than do this thing of finishing school, getting a university degree, getting a job, meeting a partner, pushing out some babies, dying. Like, we're trying to actually break that mold and encourage people to live a life from the heart. Is playing music your dream life? And if so, what does it feel like to be doing that?
I guess currently, well, man, that's a pretty loaded question. I guess in some regard it is. Yeah, it is a life that I would say that I have gone for in more than a few ways. And being driven towards being better or very good at my craft. And the byproduct of that for some people is like the ability to take that and give it to people who appreciate it on a mass level. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It's stressful and it's tough because music is music and visual art are the two sort of greatest forms of self-expression. Acting is you pretending to be another person. So to me, it is an art form to be able to manipulate your personality in a way and take on another persona.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, but that again doesn't really accomplish that much apart from, well, with movies now it doesn't accomplish that much.
And they
sometimes
say
an incredible film will provoke so much emotion and get you to a place where you actually couldn't have been before, especially with your thinking. But
they do say that actors, a lot of the time, they're doing it because they want to get away from themselves rather than becoming more self-expressed, which is what music and...
It's the same reason why people become psychologists.
Yeah.
It's like they're just two opposite ends of the spectrum trying to accomplish the exact same thing. Yeah. And yeah, I guess it's scary. It's scary to express yourself in front of a bunch of strangers all the time, and I find it really intimidating.
Still?
Yeah, still. Like I've got a show in a couple of hours, and I'm incredibly intimidated. You know, I like every time I get up on stage, I'm like, you better not fuck this up, man. Like, you know,
beautiful.
There's a lot of people here that are wanting something from you. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
And whatever it is they want is irrelevant. The fact that they want it is the thing that has brought them together. So as someone that is responsible for that, you have to actually appreciate that responsibility and be aware of it at least. And that possibly is the reason why a lot of misdirected art is being made at the moment as well. And I'm definitely included in that because some of the songs I write are just like...
Misdirected art because people are wanting, so people are trying to create to fulfill that want rather than actually self-express. Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, there's definitely there's many different ways to break into the game, and it's easier to give people what they want than to express yourself in an honest way, and express an opinion that is beyond like your own petty ego and your own bullshit, and then get to a point where like you're actually speaking into people's lives, like with the incentive of like something higher than just your own personal stuff, which in my love basically is the pinnacle, right? That's like it's the highest frequency you can resonate at if you want to speak esoterically for a second.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah I don't know.
Okay, so it all started with a question about like, is music your dream life?
Yeah.
Are you living it, and how does that feel? I guess what I'm hearing beneath that is that there's an industry of music. There is the actual self-expression, you know, the purity of music, and then there's kind of those two have to meet somewhere in between in terms of making a living out of it. So yeah, I'm interested in, you know, you've made it as an artist. People are buying your stuff. You know, there's millions of people hitting your stuff on YouTube. Like, how does that feel? Obviously, and also what I'm hearing is that there's a beautiful vulnerability also that comes attached to that with the expectation of what others suddenly kind of throw towards you as well. But do you feel grateful every day? Do you feel scared every day? Do you feel... what's your everyday experience of your life as a musician these days?
To be honest, it's pretty much the same as it always has been, and I guess it's because, you know, I've never really bought into the hype, because the hype will die, and people will find something new to listen to, and I know that that this is potentially something that could be quite short-lived, and I'm actually fine with that because I'll always make music, and whether it's to 10 people or to 20,000. It's fine because it's like, because I get to make music and I get to play for someone that's willing to listen, and even if it is only one person, and I really do mean this honestly, I'm not just blowing smoke up your asses. It's like that's the only reason why I started, and I actually prefer to play less people because there is less responsibility and you can be slightly more free through your expression. And I haven't really noticed. I haven't noticed, I've noticed that I'm playing to more people, and I've noticed that people are getting sort of progressively more crazy with me because of the whole fame thing. But I guess I got to a point where I just had to kind of let that, like, oh, I feel grateful, or I feel proud of myself, or all that stuff, because, again, like, as soon as you do that, you accept something that doesn't last, and then you will have to essentially unaccept it when it goes away, and
let it go.
Yeah, and it's just like, I'm just at peace with it in a lot of ways, and it still freaks me out, obviously, but it's...
Did you have to do a lot of work on yourself? Like, has there been a journey? Because I'm sure that at some point, ego's, you know, a big beast for all of us, and I'm sure at some point there was a blowout, even if it was private and happening behind the scenes, but I'm quite interested in that journey of...
It was the start of this year. Because I got to a point where, like, you know, my music career was building, and I was getting all these offers from record companies, and I was getting all these offers to play these big shows for all this money, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a boss, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm doing this shit.
Yeah.
And then I made a record at the start of this year, thinking that I'm just a genius. I'm like walking in there like, oh yeah, I'm the boss right now, whatever. I'm just going to cut this record live in 2 weeks from a bunch of songs I wrote like a week ago. You know, this is just how my life's going to roll now. And I worked on this record for not very long, and at the end of it, all I heard was just whinging and complaining and ego. And I was just like, that is ugly, and it hurts me to listen to it. And after that point, I came home. And it's when you come home when you get the best perspective on yourself.
Where's
because well, just Australia, but Sydney.
Yeah.
And I had changed dramatically in the 4 months that I was living in. I lived in LA, and that's where I made this record. Okay. And when I got home, I was just like, what's wrong with you? What have you been thinking about? And like, who do you think you are? And I was kind of just obviously rhetorical questions, but you know, and posing them to myself. And then at that point, I was just like, man, life's not about this at all. Like, so many people are striving for this thing that it's just like, that gets them nowhere once they get it. Like, and I'd appreciated the fact that I had gotten it, but I'm like, well, what's it for? What's the point? Like, in regards to like myself being a better human being or whatever. I was just like, I haven't gotten to that point at all. I've just become more bitter and twisted and jaded and just become a dickhead, basically. And not to anyone else, but just like the way I was thinking. And anyway, basically from that point on, I started a whole new little journey, just more inward, trying to fix myself instead of blaming everything else that was around me, because that's always going to happen. Everything else around you is just going to go about its business, because we're all a part of the Earth's intelligence, and everyone's just kind of like walking around thinking they're the fucking center of the universe, which is not true. They're all just a part of it. Like, and that's what no one's like. Well, not no one. That's probably what like 80% of the population, especially in Western culture, think at this point in time. And it's like, it's a narcissistic culture. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to think like that anymore. I need to change the way that I am inside in order to project something more beautiful and outside myself, outside, you know. I'm really bad at explaining myself. But...
No, that makes complete sense. It's like one of the perspectives that I personally adopt is that striving for fame or for the big house or for the big car, whatever it is, whatever that goal is, we're all striving for it in order to get a particular kind of feeling. But actually, you can have the feeling today.
Yeah.
You know, if you know that it's a feeling that you're chasing, because once you actually get it, you go, huh? Like, that's not what I was, you know, like you have that moment where you go, hang on, something's a bit weird there.
Yeah.
But the truth is that we can have that feeling every day of our lives. If we're chasing a feeling, then, you know, we've got it right now rather than...
Yeah. What do you think the vast majority of people that have midlife crises are wealthy? Like, to be honest, it's just like, it's people that have worked tirelessly their entire life for this religion that is money. You know, everyone believes in money, and money is this thing that, like, essentially we cannot live without. And it has kept society under control for the last 400 years, which I guess works in a twisted way, but in so many other ways it has limited our progression as human beings. And has basically flooded the world with a bunch of pointless shit that no one needs. Which, like, people do eventually think they need, because you put a poster up on the side of the road with, like, some famous person next to a car, and a bunch of rich people go, I want to be associated with that. Therefore, like, that blah blah blah, and it just like starts this whole like rift between need and want. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. I know.
No, it's fine. It's perfect, actually. To be honest, perfect.
But
just checking that that's still there.
Yeah, I guess it just. I lost my train of thought.
I guess, it was the ego journey, the realising that, you needed to come down on some level, and the disillusionment around fame and, all that to bring you what you want, and now you're kind of on a bit of an inward journey to find your centre and the things that you want in life. Yeah, that's perfect. So I just wanted to ask a question, because, I have, where did I put it? Spirit of Acacia, which I have to be honest, track number 5, which is yours, is one of my 2 favourites on here.
Sweet. Awesome.
High 5.
That's cool.
We've just done a 10-hour road trip from Sydney,
nice.
And we were switching between 1 and 5. They were our favourites for most of the time.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's a road trip song.
It is a road trip song, and very surf as well, which is obviously...
That was what I was going for.
I guess, that's a good thing, right? Yeah. So, just to start, take it a slightly different track, what does surfing mean to you? And I don't even know, how much time do you get to surf these days, being on the road?
Fair bit now. I'm living on the... don't write that. But I'm running. And I go surfing as much as I can, and it's real cool. I got this nice old single fin that's been treating me real well. And it's a beautiful thing to do. Like, you're marrying movement to an uncontrollable force. Like, what an amazing thing for a human being to do. Yeah. Like, that's cool. And there are so many positive things that come from just being in the ocean. And, like, even scientifically, the air is charged positively around the ocean. And the oxygen is cleaner in the white water. When the oxygen in white water is emitted into the atmosphere, it is the most pure oxygen you'll ever get in the world. So it's like a good thing when you're surfing. As soon as the wave breaks, you take a big deep breath of air, and that's like so good for a smoker's lungs like mine. I think
get out and ladder rolling.
And it should be something that can be enjoyed just personally, and that can be enjoyed in a group. And it's just like, it's an amazing thing to do.
What role has it played in your life over the years? Have you used it? Does it use you?
It's definitely a bit of both. I use it to calm down, and you never regret getting in the ocean. I've never gotten out of the ocean and gone, man, I wish I didn't do that. It's just like I've always felt slightly better about life post that experience, and as well, it really helps you to develop an appreciation for the actual power that is around you organically. And that sounds a little hippie, but like the hippies got a few things right. So, as you can tell by my tone,
just admiring it. It's beautiful.
But
yeah, cool. And so you were asked to create an original track for Spirit of Acacia, which is
What the Devil Has Made.
Yeah, which is so beautiful. We'll get to that in a minute. Sorry. First of all, I wanted to ask about whether you had a relationship with Morning of the Earth, the movie, prior to getting the phone call.
I'd seen that movie maybe 5 times before that phone call. Yeah. And
who did the phone call come from, by the way?
Just my manager. Right. He was like, there's this new surf film that's coming out. It's basically like a new adaptation of Morning of the Earth. And I was like, done. I'll do that for sure. Yeah. But me and my friends from school, we used to always go down, camp down the south coast of, just like 3 hours south of Sydney, Kiama, Kiola, all around there. And every morning we had no courage. We'd just be like, put on Morning of the Earth, or Sipping Jet Streams, which is an amazing surf film. And it just gets pumped up. And we'd be like, yeah, that's what surfing's about. Cool. All right, let's get in the water. And it's just like all of a sudden, your head's clear, and you're like, all right, cool. Like, we're here to surf. Let's do it. Yeah. So it was just like, it was one of the key motivators for me to get into the spirit of it. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. So your song's called What the Devil Has Made. How did you approach the creation of the song? Because that movie's got a lot of power in it, for the...
I haven't seen it.
No, not the new
Morning
one.
of the Earth.
Morning of the Earth. You
Yeah.
know, you speak to anyone who's surfed or, you know, even people that have just kind of dabbled, but they know people that have surfed a lot. Everyone's like, yeah, you know, I wake up to that soundtrack, or I've seen the movie, you know, however many times I've watched it to get pumped for surf, whatever it is. How did you then sit down, knowing they were doing a remake, how did you approach the creation of the song? And I'm interested also in the journey from that beginning bit to the finished product.
I guess
because we were listening to it and going, where's he coming from with this?
Yeah.
You know, what the devil has made.
Well, the song was actually written before I got that phone call. And I changed a few of the lyrics because it was one of the songs I'd written for my album. And the lyrics were a lot more personal. And I just realized that the chorus and the verse was a lot more personal than what I had changed it to for this track. Okay. And I just realized that, like, oh man, this has such a crazy duality to it in meaning. This is like, and basically I just took the organic approach lyrically with the verses, sort of changed them up, and but with the compositional process of the song, I was basically in my apartment, and I recorded everything myself. So every instrument you hear on that recording is me.
Wow.
But I kind of stuffed up the flute line a lot. I
didn't notice.
Okay, yeah. On the original, it's heaps better. It's true. Anyway, but yeah. So.
Okay, cool. And what does it mean? What the devil has made?
Well,
what does it mean?
The chorus is somebody moved up, moved on. You have to take their watery grave, and in this world, the cruel will show you have to take what the devil has made, and that's essentially like it's a bit of shtick at culture, basically, and kind of at capitalism. And surfing, especially in the 60s, was so anti that, and that was the original surf film.
Okay.
And that was something that brought surfing to the masses, and an alternative way of thinking, and an alternative lifestyle. And I was like, that's perfect. It's like...
It's perfect.
Yeah, cool.
So, comp surfing for the last few decades has kind of been on the up and up, and you know, you've had the Mick Fannings and the, you know, the kind of big guns that everybody's looked towards and gone, you know, that's what I want to be one day, you know, the kids, the 20-year-olds, all the rest of it. But there seems to be a little bit of a tide turning. There's a movement back towards the appreciation of the soul surfer. By that I mean like the guy or the girl who chose surfing as a lifestyle that wasn't surfing to make $1 million and get the be crowned number one. So I'm just I'm interested in what you understand the soul surfer to be and what's special about that lifestyle.
I guess the soul surfer is the one that wants to explore, that wants to, that understands his place in the water and feels good about his place in the water, doesn't feel the need to prove himself, but just have the one-on-one relationship with the ocean and be able to work with the ocean instead of against it. Because a lot of professional surfing is like, you're throwing the craziest shapes you can, as consistently as you can, and as bombastically as you can, in order to get points against and competing against other people that are trying to do the same thing. And I guess the soul surfer is the exact opposite. The soul surfer is just like, that cool, a wave, awesome. It's pretty simple. It's like, it's not supposed to be a complicated thought process. It's like, I just want to be in the ocean and I want to appreciate it, like, in this way of, like, with marrying my movement to it, basically. So, yeah, I think competition surfing is full on. I know I have a few friends that are pros on the tour at the moment, and it's really stressful, and I think it kind of takes away from what it was meant to be. But I guess like money does that, you know what I mean? Just like it does to music.
Yeah, I was just gonna draw that parallel.
Yeah. So, but it's just like, but it's cool. It also gives a lot of people the opportunity or the drive to become a, you know. Or I don't know, maybe that's a bit irrelevant because it kind of goes against what I just said. I'm just riffing.
Yeah. So I'm interested also in, like, there seems to me, I'm really interested in I'm not a surfer personally, but I know a lot of them. And there's a relationship that surfers have with the ocean, which, you know, we've got Christos Georgie Walker is doing some work with us. He's a surfer. All of his, high school years and primary school years, he would get up at like 4 a.m, ride his bike with his, not at Kingscliff, but around here, northern New South Wales. He'd ride his bike so that he could have the surf before he went home, got dressed, and went off to school. There seems to me to be, with the surfers that I know, to be, there's a wisdom that kind of comes from a long-term relationship with the ocean. It's kind of a big question, but like, are there wisdoms that you can speak of having been a surfer?
Or like specific
that you've got out of your
philosophical
relationship.
findings.
Yeah, or like beautiful, moving. What did you say before? Like
marrying movement to an uncontrollable force.
Yeah, to an uncontrollable force. I mean, that's a beautiful moment, right? There's a yogi, a guy that I know who's also a massive surfer, actually trained Mick Fanning, and also Phil McDonald. Got
What's
him up
his name?
Mark Bredner. Yeah.
Oh, Mark Bredner.
Do you
Okay,
know
cool.
him?
No. I thought you were talking about Maddie.
Yeah. Do you want to get up?
It's hot in here. Yeah, it's boiling.
Maybe leave that open.
Yeah.
It's not noisy now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about someone else.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about, so Mark Brenner talks about, as a yogi, who's also a surfer, he's like, it's the single point of focus that people go for in meditation or yoga, and the presence that people get when they're surfing. So they're kind of, there's this uncontrollable force, which is the ocean, and you're in it, and you have to be present because your only job at that point is to actually control yourself on the wave or marry yourself with the wave. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, it's just like yoga or meditation. Now I get it. Now I get, that to me kind of was a light bulb moment. Well, of course a surfer is going to keep going back for that presence.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it forces you to be in the moment, which again is a big problem with society. Like most people are living in the past or the future, which creates depression and anxiety. And like if they could stop tripping on what's behind them and considering what is never going to happen because it's a mind-made projection of the future, and start to live within the actual moment, which is like, this is all very simple shit. You can read that in like any Eckhart Tolle book, but like, but it's that it
but
forces.
it's why millions of people are trying to read Eckhart Tolle, because people don't necessarily have it now.
Because just like surfing, it forces presence. It forces you to be there and not have to consider everything else. And you are out of the land. Like you have a perspective on the land too, which is like something that is actually quite physically incredible or visually incredible to see. That like you're actually in an element that is not natural for a human being. And I guess everyone develops their own philosophies, and maybe they won't be able to verbalize them particularly, but it does change the way you think, and it does change your state of mind, because it offers you an alternative as far as like the way that your mind works. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't be able to share any specific philosophies that I've sort of come up with. Normally I'm just like, I'm humming a tune and like trying to just like get in the cool wave, Like, that's pretty much it. But what's going on sort of maybe a few levels down in your state of consciousness is probably something really special, and something that a lot of people can't appreciate because they don't have the actual understanding or the vocabulary, or there probably aren't even words to properly express it. So, which is, that's the English language is pretty limited. Yeah,
I'm just interested. I just want to go back for a minute, like back to your kind of music career. I think a lot of people struggle with, because of modern day society, because of what we're taught, because of the fact that we're not taught how to love in school, we're not taught how to have good relationships, we're not taught about our spiritual, emotional bodies. Like it's all just very kind of head thought, level sort of stuff. And I think it's one of the reasons why 1 in 5 people have either depression or an anxiety disorder, because they're not living from their heart. You've obviously chosen a career path and a lifestyle that's very heart-based. You're singing, you're self-expressed, you're surfing, you're hanging with people that you want to most of the time. Were there challenges along the way, to creating your dream life as a musician?
Oh, yeah.
And what can you talk to me about, like, a challenge or two that you had along the way, and did you get to the point where you thought you might give up and you might choose a different life path?
Yeah, definitely. I've almost given up a bunch of times, and you know, irrespective of my love of music, I've almost given up.
How many years was your career in the making, do you think?
I've actually been touring for 9 years now.
Wow.
And it's a lot for a 23-year-old.
And what, are you 23?
Yeah.
You're a baby.
Yeah, I'm pretty young. Yeah.
And at what point do you felt everything turned around?
Seriously, only a couple months ago this year.
Yeah, right.
And, like, I was a depressed little fucker, man. Like, my entire life I was. Because, like, I got hassled as a child. Like, no one likes a fucking singer. Especially where I'm from. It's like footy and the surfing culture, it can be pretty rough in certain areas. And Cronulla was definitely one of them, especially in my younger years.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I guess, like, I've just copped it my whole life from people. And then it was only this year that I realised, like, no one knows what the fuck they're talking about. It's fine. Everyone is an ignorant fool. Like, it's actually fine.
Yeah.
And it's the people that hurt you the most are the people that are ignorant to their own ignorance. And that's like a complex that they have, and it's something that they need to break free of, which a lot of people will call unconsciousness. But, yeah, I had so many struggles, like, and it was all internal, and that's the thing. Like, I think that's where everyone's struggle comes from. Everyone sets like limits for themselves, and whether it be like they subconsciously set it because of the exterior, and because of the pressure that they feel from all the bullshit that's going on around them, or if it's just like they've just never seen or been creative enough to, like, see an outcome or use their mind in a new way. So yeah, there were so many moments where, like, I ran out of money, and I was in, like, at 20 I was in, like, an unbelievable amount of debt, trying to, like, fly over to the UK and, like, play shows to people that didn't know who I was, because, like, I wanted to see if people actually liked my music and stuff. And yeah, I lost a big record deal in the UK because I kind of had a tiff. Had a bit of a fight with the...
How old were you when you were on Idol?
16.
16. Is that that long ago? I've got no concept of time.
It's like, yeah, 6 years.
That's like, yeah.
It's wild.
Amazing. So, okay, so you lost the record deal.
Yeah, and basically, like, I came home just completely defeated, just going like, fuck this. Like, I worked in a coffee shop, but that was, yeah, and then, like, I basically, like, well, I can't play music for a while. I physically can't. Like,
yeah, it's nothing
my
left.
bank account will not let me.
Yeah.
I couldn't actually waste a moment without, like, I had to work. Like, I had to make heaps and heaps of money so I could just pay the bank off.
Yeah.
But the whole time I was doing it, I'm like, this was just so I can start playing music again. And even if I didn't really think that way if I didn't think clearly like that whilst I was in the process of, like, working really hard, I worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day at a coffee shop, lived on $112 a week.
Wow.
And the rest went to paying off the debt.
Yeah.
And I was making like $1,000 a week or something, like, as a barista, because baristas get paid pretty well. And, they get paid like $25 an hour if you're in a good shop, especially in Sydney, because everyone loves their coffee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
Just kidding.
But yeah, so, and I guess, especially when I was slightly more fragile, like, any negative comment I got was just like, oh man, that's a heavy blow, because, like, all I'm doing is trying to do something good, and I've just got all these people just trying to cut me down. I just don't get it. Like, I'd never be like that to someone else. Like, I'd never, like, consciously go up to someone and tell them they're a fucking faggot or they're a piece of shit or whatever. It's just like,
and
why?
Did you find the bigger your profile got, the more of that was coming at you?
Well, post-Idol,
yeah,
that's pretty much it. That's like career suicide. No one ever wants to listen to an idol, really. Like, that's not true. Like, people who appreciate music don't really consider people from that show as, like, a viable listening option.
I would say it's interesting hearing you say that, though, because I would say that you're one of the idols, you know, in inverted commas, who has completely disassociated yourself from that branding or that, you know, whatever. I mean, to me, you know, everywhere I go, you know, Matt Corby is cool.
Yeah.
You know? He's not Matt Corby's not the guy that did Idol and, you know, sold out, which, you know, obviously that is the reputation that some people get.
But, totally. And I had that reputation for ages. Like, and it was just...
You superseded that.
Well, just you have to consistently disassemble, like, people's thought process towards you by doing something new and doing something that they appreciate. And that, in some regard, is playing the game. But, like, I definitely took that into consideration when I was doing certain things, making certain career choices. And one of them was, like, do not play music in Australia for at least 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't. I moved to London. I lived in London for 2 years, almost.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way anyone's going to listen. So I might as well, because, like, it's a common trend in Australia for, like, artists to, like, not really do much in Australia. They go overseas, and, like, a bunch of people like them overseas, and they come back to Australia, and everyone's like, oh, we liked you the whole time. Like, yeah, good on you. But, like, it's fine. You have to kind of be smarter than the game. And, like, and it's pretty easy because it's laid out in front of you. You can look it up on the internet and just, like, see the progression of music and see what happens to these artists.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to do was to have people listen to my music objectively and not have a preconceived idea, which is impossible. Like, I understand that now, but when I was younger, I didn't. But the thing is, like, I accomplished it in a great way where, like, I put out new things and people just sort of started to lose their old way of considering who I was, kind of. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just to finish off, because we've been talking for a while, but, you know, whether people's dream is to play music or whether it's to surf every day and build their life around that, or whether it's to do something completely different, do you have, based on your ups and downs and your experience and your fame and then your ego bubble popping and all this sort of stuff, have you got any great advice?
I guess it's just like, people need to educate themselves. Like, they need to fill their mind with the right shit. People need to get rid of their televisions. People need to start reading books again. People need to start communicating with one another again and, like, stop fucking using their phones to live their life. Like, this shit is getting so fucking out of hand, it's ridiculous. And people need to... like, I have so much to say about this. Like, because, like... But at the same time, like, I don't know anything, and I don't claim to know anything. Like, I am just as ignorant as the next person, but, like, at least I can admit it. And I think a lot of people can, and that's the start. That's the start of being able to learn again, instead of just have an opinion and think you're right. Because no one's right, and, like, no one's gotten it right. If we're talking about something fundamental here, like, because that's all I'm really in search of. I'm in search of, like... And I'm also a little bit bitter and twisted because, sorry, I'm jumping topics. I have a hyperactive brain where I have 3 sentences and I think I've said them all, and then I just start one and then finish the third. Sorry.
I know how you feel.
Basically, like, people just need to drop their sense of I. Like, I deserve this, or I am this person, and identify themselves with this I that is associated with thought as well. Like, and the English language is terrible with that. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm going to try and tie it in.
Keep going.
And
floor's yours.
And basically, the I creates the ego, and, like, all these books are saying this at the moment. There's, like, all this talk about ego, and a lot of it's actually pretty spot on, but this will be labelled as, like, hippie bullshit soon. Like, the mass media has already grabbed a hold of it and has already, like, tried to compartmentalize it. But, like, you know a lot about that because you know how the media manipulates the message in order to get their point across.
Well, I know that there's a lot of messages that will never see the light of day in the media.
Yeah, because
it's not palatable to a News Limited brand or a Fairfax or whatever. So it's you know, one of the big reasons I left is because I could never explore this stuff ever.
And I think people just need to continuously question. They need to be inquisitive, and they need to care. Like, people need to care about other people and themselves in a way that is in a loving way, not in like I deserve something. It's just like, well, I'm a part of this whole, and, like, I need to do my thing in a good way, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible without sounding like a fucking fruitcake. But it's just like, man, the world is at a we'll get to a point pretty soon where it's going to go one way or the other. We're either going to fucking destroy ourselves because, like, you look at the political system, you look what fucking Tony Abbott's doing at the moment. He's a fucking prick, and you can print that. I don't give a shit. Like, that dude, and Gina Reinhardt as well, she needs to pull her finger out of her ass because, like, even, like, trying to dredge the Great Barrier Reef, look, I'm not a fucking activist, but, like, that really pissed me off. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You know what they want to build? They want to build a platform to take, like, basically a bunch of goods, like, from one part of the reef to the other, which will only work for 6 months of the year, and they haven't even taken into consideration the tide and the wind. The only other place in the world that has built this platform is in a river where there is no wind, and essentially there's no king tides or anything like that. It's like, it's quite, don't quote me on that because I don't really know, but it's a completely different thing. Whatever. But it's just like, it's all just for the sake of fucking greed and selfishness, and it's all built on fear. And it's just like, people need to stop being fearful, and they need to fucking start. Hey guys, I'm doing an interview. Just give me a sec. Sorry, that's my man.
I can't see anyone in there.
But
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I got so much to say about what's going on in the world, but again, like, I have no right to say anything because, like, my voice is worth nothing, you know, and that's fine. You
have no right and every right, just like everybody else.
That's exactly right. And the last thing I'll say, is that
okay.
people need to assume responsibility for what they're doing, like, especially artists, and that has to change, like, for the good. Like, you look at what America is producing as far as art and the message that it is sending to, like, kids that are growing up, and a lot of it is just fucking sex and money and just, like, getting shit. Like, it's all about just, like, getting shit, the big house and the big car and all that bullshit. It doesn't make you happy. It doesn't actually accomplish anything apart from exacerbate your own ego. So it's like, people just need to drop all this bullshit and just start loving one another again. And I don't care if that sounds hippie because, like, again, they got some shit right, those guys.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. One last question, and it's going to feel like a loaded one.
Yeah.
But
I'll try and get this. Sorry, man.
No, this is a big one actually. But you know, you're brought up in a religious environment. You've had your own journey since then. Do you believe in God?
I think that the word God is an interesting one that has been, man, I guess I believe in God, but when I say God, I do not mean a man in the sky that sees and hears everything that we do and loves us dearly, but then if we do one thing wrong, he sends us to hell. That is not what I believe. I believe that heaven and hell and God is essentially in everything, and that sounds, when I say it out loud, that sounds really silly, but I really do think that there is a higher state of consciousness that we can get to. And in saying that, that's a pretty loaded answer, because I think Jesus' message is pretty insane in a good way. I think some of the stuff that he said was fucking amazing, and people took it way too literally. They didn't see the metaphor. Like, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the light. And he didn't mean Jesus, me as in Jesus. He meant, like, I as in yourself, you as the being and the antenna, and the thing that is, like, has the ability to be conscious and to understand and to be inquisitive and to learn and to love. Like, you are heaven or hell embodied. And that is a matter of perception, and it is a matter of action, and accepting responsibility. And that, in a way, God is in there somewhere, but I do not know. And I can never claim to say I believe in God or do not believe in God, because, like, to say that you do or don't means that you've come to some sort of resolution about it, and clearly no one has gotten it right so far.
Agnostic?
Fence sitter? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know. And I think that's a cool thing, because, like, I would like to understand more, and that's, like, I'm reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead at the moment. It's really interesting. Buddhism is very cool. Some cool shit about that. I'm going to read the Quran next. So I just want to know. I want to know all the different perspectives, because, like, they're all written by man. And whether you can say it was prophetic or it was an idea. They're very closely related, and they seem to get mixed up in each other's business a lot of the time. And they actually could essentially be the same thing, and people just compartmentalize it because, oh, he's a holy man and he isn't. Therefore, what he says has more philosophical or spiritual weight to it. But yeah, like, I don't know. I have no religious preference, and I'm not agnostic, and I'm not an atheist, and
you're sitting in the unknown.
I'm just like, I just want to learn more. Basically, I want to understand, and I don't want to understand from a bit of jaded perspective and label myself as something and then see it through that perspective. I just want to be able to go, okay, like, it all just doesn't make sense, and I should just like try and just start to just dig into things and just like see what I find, which again is quite dangerous because like that's how new religions are born, and that's like, and people just run with that shit. But anyway, so that's a whole other thing.
That's cool. The guy I mentioned before, Christos Georgie Walker, who lived around here and did the surfing every morning at 4 a.m. He became a Buddhist monk at the age of 20, and he was ordained at 22, went and lived in a monastery in London, and then spent 5 years there learning with a Tibetan Buddhist master, and then left eventually because he realised that that he needed to, like, he felt like the message wasn't, like, whatever he was learning and the experience that he'd had wasn't being used. It was just like everyone was just sitting there kind of dormant doing their thing. So he left, and he's been out in society for the last 15 years, basically teaching, but also kind of using his stuff with other people. But he's doing an event with us at Soul Sessions in January called Dharma Express, which is all about, a big surfer as well, but, you know, and he sort of doesn't subscribe to, like, he's open to all philosophies now.
Yeah, me too.
Which is really a cool place to be. So, that was really cool.
Cool, man.
I hope, it wasn't too
no, that's alright.
It was alright?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. So what's happened is, because we didn't do much of the intro, but Spirit of Acacia, there's a guy called Chris Moss, who probably your manager's been talking to, who's the ex-CEO of Warner. And I've been working with him. I've run these Soul Sessions events for a while, and we just explore everything. Like, there's no particular, apart from love. Love's the only thing that runs through everything. And we just get all these amazing speakers and all these kind of amazing musicians come through and do bits and pieces. And so Chris and I met, and we were doing a little gig for 33 people with Lane Beachley and Mark Bredner, the yogi that's worked with Mick. And he came to me and he was like, oh, we're releasing Spirit of Acacia in January. I'm like, our event's in February. And we just started talking and said, oh, let's do something together. And so we've got Albie Fowles on, who's the director of Morning of the Earth, and he's basically, he's now 75 or something, but he's a seriously wacky spiritual dude.
Yeah, cool.
Do you know about him?
No.
Oh, you should check him out. He's really cool. And he's got a blog called The Daily Lama.
Very good.
Writes all this shit. And he's really good mates with Dorji as well. They all live up here on the northern New South Wales. Anyway, so they're all coming down to Manly for Feb 23, and I've just sent your manager an email today just to see if maybe you can be involved as well. It's for 300 people in the audience, but it's really going to be an event with interviews like this. Not many, we always do 2 interviews, so we'll be interviewing Albie Fowles on, and then because there's so many interesting characters in this one and related to the movie and the soundtrack and stuff, we'll have a panel of maybe 3 or 4 people as the second slot. But I sent an email to a couple of your, Matt, was that Matt Ensel?
No, that's my sound guy, Matt Landers.
Oh, okay. So I sent an email to Matt Ensel and Niriko, so they've put me in touch with some other guy, Brent or something.
Oh yeah, Brett.
Brett.
Who would be my booking agent.
Right, okay, cool. Yeah.
Music business.
Yeah.
Many cogs in the system.
Yeah, lots of them. Yeah. But you need it too, you need a team.
Oh man, they protect me so good.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty full on.
It is,
and
yeah. You can't do anything on your own, and you need the team, and so I think it's great that you've got all that happening. But when it finally trickles back to you, February 23, if you can make it.
Yeah.
We're just doing a massive celebration of this through these kind of conversations.
Cool.
I'd love you to come and play the song, which is what I'm talking to them about, and it's going to be cool. The intention is for it to be like that event that the 300 people who are there will always say, I was there.
Yeah.
20 years from now.
It's at St Patrick's, the cathedral in Manly.
It's at the big castle
cool.
on the hill, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.